You wake up and before your eyes even open, the past is already there, sitting on your chest like a corpse that refuses to bury itself. That mistake you made 3 years ago, it whispers your name before your coffee does. That person who walked away, their ghost is in the empty side of your bed every single morning. That version of you who failed, who froze, who said the wrong thing, who wasn't enough. You carry them with you like a prison guard, not a survivor. And here is the truth that will either set you on fire or save your life. The past does not exist. It is not a place. It is not a thing you can touch, fix, or change. It is a story your brain keeps replaying because it confuses familiarity with safety. But you are not your story. You are the one who is still breathing, still reading this, still searching for a way out. So let me ask you directly, what if the only thing keeping you trapped is your refusal to grieve what happened and then leave it behind? What if your obsession with the past is not a sign of depth, but a symptom of fear? Because here is what I have learned after watching hundreds of people destroy themselves with regret. You do not let go of the past when you are ready. You let go when you decide that your future is more important than your pain. And that decision cannot wait. It cannot wait until you understand why they left, until you get an apology, until you lose 10 pounds, until you feel strong enough. The past is not asking for your permission to haunt you, it is taking it. So today you take it back. You have been told that healing takes time. That is a lie. Time does not heal anything. Time just passes. What heals you is what you do inside that time. And most people spend that time doing the one thing that guarantees they will never be free. They relive the past instead of learning from it. Let me show you the difference. Learning looks like this. That happened. It hurt. Here is what I know now. I will not go back. Reliving looks like this. Why did that happen? What if I had done this differently? How could they do that to me? I can still feel it like it was yesterday. One is a bridge to a new life. The other is a rocking chair, lots of movement, but you never leave the porch. You have been rocking for months, maybe years. And the terrible irony is that you think you are processing, but you are actually programming your brain to become an expert in suffering. Every time you replay the argument, every time you scan their social media, every time you rehearse what you should have said, you are not understanding. You are drilling a neural trench so deep that eventually you cannot see over the walls. That is not healing. That is addiction to pain. And you need to call it what it is. Let's get honest about what you are really holding on to. You tell yourself it is the memory of a person, a failure, a betrayal. But that is not true. What you are holding on to is the story that made you feel important. Because without that story, without the ex who broke you, the job that fired you, the childhood that wounded you, who would you be? That is a terrifying question, isn't it? The past gives you an identity, a sad identity, a victim identity, a I've been through so much identity, but it is an identity nonetheless. And your brain, as messed up as this sounds, would rather have a painful identity than no identity at all. That is the psychology of attachment to suffering. You are not stuck because the past was so terrible. You are stuck because letting go means you have to build a new self from scratch. And that is hard. That is uncertain. That requires you to show up for a life that has no guarantees. So instead, you stay small, you stay bitter, you stay safe in the ruins of what was. But safe is not the same as alive. And deep down, you know that. You feel it every Sunday night when the dread creeps in. You feel it when you watch other people laugh without a shadow behind their eyes. You feel it when you catch your reflection and see someone who has given up before the fight even started. That is not who you are meant to be. So here is your first brutal assignment. I want you to take 15 minutes today and write down every single story you tell yourself about your past. Not the facts, the stories. I am broken because my father left. I will never trust again because she cheated. I am not smart enough because I failed that exam. Write them all down. And then I want you to ask yourself one question for each story. Is this story helping me become who I want to be tomorrow? Do not ask if it is true. Truth is irrelevant when the story is killing you. Ask if it is useful. If the answer is no, you do not need to debate it. You do not need to prove it wrong. You simply stop feeding it. Every time that story plays in your head from now on, you say out loud, "That story does not serve me anymore. I am choosing a different one." That is not denial. That is discipline. That is the moment you stop being a historian of your own suffering and start being the author of your future. The past will not change, but your relationship to it can change in a single second. That second is now. Challenge. For the next 7 days, every time you catch yourself replaying a past event that you cannot change, stop mid-sentence and physically shake your hands out. Take 3 deep breaths and ask, what is one thing I can do right now to move forward? Do not answer with your mind. Answer with your body. Stand up, walk to a different room, drink cold water, call a friend, write 1 sentence about today. Interrupt the loop physically before you try to fix it mentally. Section 2. The neuroscience of being stuck and how to hack your own brain. You need to understand what is actually happening inside your skull, because once you see the mechanics, the guilt and shame will start to lose their grip. Your brain is not designed to make you happy. It is designed to keep you alive. And alive, to your ancient survival circuitry, means predictable. Your brain loves patterns. It loves routines, even painful ones, because a known pain is safer than an unknown possibility. That is why you keep thinking about what went wrong. That is why you cannot stop analyzing the conversation from 2 years ago. Every time you revisit that memory, your brain releases a small amount of cortisol and adrenaline, stress hormones. And here is the sick trick. Because you have done it so many times, your brain now expects that hit. It has built a superhighway for that thought. The neurons that fire together wire together, as they say. So every time you choose the painful memory over the present moment, you are literally strengthening the architecture of your own prison. You are not a victim of your past. You are a daily architect of your own neural chains. That sounds harsh, I know. But I am not here to comfort you. I am here to wake you up. Let me tell you about a mechanism called the default mode network, or DMN. This is the part of your brain that becomes active when you are not focused on a task, when you are showering, driving, lying in bed. It is your brain's autopilot. And for people who are stuck in the past, the DMN is essentially a highlight reel of regret, shame, and what if. Your brain, left to its own devices, will always drift toward the most well-worn path. If you have spent years ruminating, that path is a canyon. The good news, and this is the part that most self-help gurus never tell you, is that you can literally rewire that canyon. It is called neuroplasticity. Your brain changes based on where you direct your attention, not based on what you intend, based on where you put your attention. So if you spend 20 minutes a day deliberately focusing on the present, on the sensation of your feet on the floor, on the sound of your own breathing, on the texture of the food you are eating, you are not relaxing. You are performing brain surgery. You are forcing your DMN to build new paths. You are telling your nervous system, that old story is not the priority anymore. This moment is. Here is where most people fail. They try to think their way out of thinking. They say to themselves, I need to stop thinking about the past. And then they think about stopping, which is still thinking about it. You cannot fight a thought with a thought. That is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The only way out is through the body. Your nervous system does not understand English. It understands sensation, breath, movement, temperature, pressure. When you feel the past rising up, the anger, the grief, the shame, do not try to argue with it. Drop into your body immediately. Press your palms together hard. Splash cold water on your face. Breathe out for twice as long as you breathe in. That last one is critical. Long exhales activate your parasympathetic nervous system, the brake pedal for your stress response. Do that for 90 seconds and your cortisol levels will start to drop. This is not spiritual woo. This is physiology. You are not weak for feeling stuck. You are human, but you are responsible for learning the levers of your own machine. Let me give you a daily practice that will change the physical structure of your brain in 30 days. Every morning before you check your phone, sit for 5 minutes. Set a timer. Close your eyes. And every time a thought about the past appears, and it will, like a trained monkey, you do not fight it. You say, not now. And you return your attention to the feeling of air moving in and out of your nostrils. That is it. That is the entire practice. You are not trying to empty your mind. You are trying to build the muscle of choice. Every time you choose where to place your attention, you are weakening the old neural pathway and strengthening a new one. After a few weeks, you will notice something strange. The past will still come, but it will not grab you by the throat anymore. It will be like a radio playing in another room. You can hear it, but you don't have to dance to it. That is freedom, not the absence of memories. The ability to choose which ones you entertain. Now let's talk about dopamine, because this is where most people sabotage themselves without knowing it. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. It is the anticipation chemical. It is released when your brain expects a reward. And here is the dark side. Your brain can learn to anticipate the emotional payoff of self-pity, of victimhood, of being the one who was wronged. When you tell your friend the story of how they hurt you for the 10th time and you feel that rush of validation, that is dopamine. When you write that bitter comment online and get likes, that is dopamine. When you rehearse the argument in your head and feel the righteous anger surge, that is dopamine. You have become addicted to the narrative of your own wound. And like any addiction, the first step is admitting that you are getting something out of staying stuck. You are getting attention, identity, and a twisted form of control. Because if you are the victim, you never have to take full responsibility for your life. If you are the one who was destroyed by the past, you have a permanent excuse not to try. Let that sink in. Then let it piss you off. Action step today: identify one story you tell about your past that gives you a hidden payoff. Ask yourself, what would I lose if I stopped believing this story? Be honest. Maybe you would lose sympathy from certain people. Maybe you would lose the excuse not to start that business or ask that person out. Maybe you would lose the comfort of certainty. Now write down what you would gain instead. Then make a choice. You cannot serve two masters. You either serve the story that keeps you small, or you serve the future that scares you but calls you. There is no middle ground. Section 3. The habits that bury the past or resurrect it every morning. Your environment is a silent architect of your mental state, and you have been ignoring it for far too long. Take a look at the room you are in right now. What do you see? Maybe it is clutter from months ago. Maybe there is an object that reminds you of them. A gift, a photo, a piece of clothing you should have thrown away but cannot bring yourself to touch. Maybe your workspace feels heavy, dim, stale. Here is what you need to understand. Your brain is always scanning your surroundings for cues about how to feel. If your environment looks like a museum of past pain, your nervous system will never fully relax. Every time you see that coffee mug they gave you, your brain fires a tiny threat response. Every time you walk past the chair where you used to sit together, your hippocampus retrieves the memory and your amygdala flags it as relevant. You are not weak for being triggered. You are biological, and biology can be outsmarted. Do a brutal audit of your physical space. Anything that ties you to a version of your past that you have decided to leave behind, get rid of it. Not maybe someday. Not but it was expensive. Not but it holds sentimental value. Sentimental value is just the name we give to emotional anchors that keep us docked in a harbor we should have sailed from years ago. Throw it away, donate it, burn it if you have to. Make space for what is coming by clearing out what has already died. Your morning routine is either a lifeline or a noose. How you start the first hour of your day programs the next 16. If you wake up and immediately grab your phone, you are handing the controls of your nervous system to a fire hose of other people's lives, other people's highlights, and other people's pasts. Within 30 seconds, you have already compared your behind the scenes to someone else's reel. That is a recipe for shame. Instead, build a 10-minute ritual that belongs only to you. Before any screen, before any obligation, before any conversation. Here is one that works. Get out of bed, make it immediately. This signals to your brain that you are not returning to sleep or to the past. Drink a full glass of water. Your brain is dehydrated and your cortisol is naturally high in the morning. Then stand by a window and look at something distant for 2 minutes. That last one is not random. Looking at distance shifts your visual cortex from near mode stress scanning to far mode relaxation. It literally tells your brain, we are safe. There is no immediate threat. Then and only then do you sit down with a notebook and write 3 things you are going to do today that move you forward, not fix the past, not apologize for the past, not ruminate on the past. Forward. That word is your new religion. Let's talk about the ritual of the evening, because the past loves to attack when you are tired and alone. You know the feeling. It is 11 p.m., you are in bed, the lights are off, and suddenly your brain decides to play the greatest hits of every mistake you have ever made. That is not a coincidence. That is your prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain, getting tired and clocking out. When the CEO leaves, the amygdala and the hippocampus start running the show, and they love drama. So you need to hack the evening. 2 hours before bed, cut off all alcohol. Alcohol suppresses REM sleep and increases anxiety the next day. Dim the lights and do a brain dump. Write down everything that is worrying you, every memory that came up today, every fear about the future. Get it out of your head and onto paper. This is not journaling for therapy. This is offloading working memory. Your brain has a limited capacity for unresolved loops. When you write things down, you are telling your brain, I have recorded this. You do not need to keep replaying it. Then, crucially, write one sentence that closes the chapter for today. I did my best with what I knew today. Tomorrow I will know more. That sentence is a boundary. It says the past ends at midnight, and you are not allowed to carry it over. Discipline is not about motivation. Motivation is a firework, loud, bright, and gone in seconds. Discipline is the slow, unglamorous work of choosing the same small action over and over when every cell in your body is screaming for the old comfort. Letting go of the past is not a one-time event. It is not a retreat, a ceremony, a conversation, or a dramatic breakdown. It is 1,000 small choices. The choice to not check their profile when the urge hits. The choice to speak kindly to yourself when you remember that failure. The choice to get out of bed when staying under the covers feels like the only safe option. And here is the secret that separates the people who heal from the people who stay broken. You do not have to feel ready. You just have to do the thing. Action comes before motivation. Always has, always will. You think the person who runs every morning feels like running. No, they feel the same resistance you do. The difference is they have decided that the feeling of resistance is not a command. It is just weather. You can feel the rain and still walk. So stop waiting for the day when the past stops hurting. That day will never come if you wait. But if you act, if you build the habits, the boundaries, the routines, the pain will stop being the driver of your life. It will become background noise, and eventually you will forget it is even there. Here is a practical habit that most people dismiss because it sounds too simple. Change your posture for 2 minutes every time you think about the past. That is not a metaphor. Stand up, pull your shoulders back, lift your chin, put your hands on your hips. Hold that pose for 120 seconds. Why? Because your body and your brain are in constant conversation. When you slouch, look down, and curl inward, your brain releases stress hormones. That is the physical posture of defeat. When you expand your body, open chest, head up. Stable stance, your brain releases testosterone and reduces cortisol. That is the posture of power. You cannot think your way into a new state of mind, but you can pose your way there. Every time the past tries to shrink you, you physically expand. That is not pretending. That is using the biology you were given. Try it right now. Think of the memory that hurts the most. Now stand like a warrior who has survived that memory and is still here. Feel the difference. That difference is the gap between victim and victor. It is only 2 inches of bone and muscle, but it is everything. Question for you. What is one daily habit that you currently do that secretly feeds your attachment to the past? Be specific. Is it checking their location? Listening to sad music that reminds you of them? Rereading old messages? Complaining to the same friend for the 100th time? Now ask yourself, what would you have to replace that habit with starting tomorrow morning to starve the old neural pathway? Name the replacement. Write it down. Put it on your bathroom mirror. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to start interrupting the pattern. 1 interruption today, 2 tomorrow. That is how you bury the past. Not with a funeral, but with 1,000 small, boring, glorious acts of rebellion. Section 4. RELATIONSHIPS. BOUNDARES, and the art of saying no to the ghosts you cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick, and that includes the people you surround yourself with. This is the hardest truth to face because we want to believe that everyone has good intentions, that time heals all wounds, that forgiveness means letting toxic people stay in your life. None of that is true. Let me tell you about a client I once worked with. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah carried the weight of a childhood where her mother constantly reminded her of every mistake she had ever made. Every family dinner was a reenactment of past failures. Every phone call began with Section 4, RELATIONSHIPS, BOUNDRAES, and the art of saying no to the ghost you cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick, and that includes the people you surround yourself with. This is the hardest truth to face because we want to believe that everyone has good intentions, that time heals all wounds, that forgiveness means letting toxic people stay in your life. None of that is true. Let me tell you about a client I once worked with. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah carried the weight of a childhood where her mother constantly reminded her of every mistake she had ever made. Every family dinner was a reenactment of past failures. Every phone call began with, "Remember when you embarrassed us?" Sarah believed she could not set boundaries because she is my mother. So she kept showing up, kept listening, kept absorbing the same stories, and her anxiety got worse. Her relationships outside the family were a mess because she expected everyone to remind her of her past. Then one day, she did something radical. She told her mother, "I will no longer discuss anything that happened before today. If you bring up the past, I will hang up and try again next week." Her mother tested it immediately. Sarah hung up. She did it again and again. After 3 months, her mother stopped. Not because she changed fundamentally, but because Sarah changed her behavior. Here is the lesson. You teach people how to treat you. If you keep allowing others to drag your past into the present, you are not being kind. You are being a doormat for ghosts. Let's talk about the conversations you have with yourself, because that is the most important relationship you will ever manage. Your internal dialogue is either your greatest ally or your most relentless enemy. Listen to how you speak to yourself when you make a mistake. Do you say, "There I go again, I always mess up"? That is the voice of the past. That is a recording from someone who hurt you years ago, and you have been playing it on repeat so long that you think it is your own voice. It is not. Your real voice, the one that came into this world before anyone shamed you, before anyone left you, before anyone told you that you were not enough, that voice is still there. It is just buried under years of learned self-criticism. So here is a practice that feels strange but works. Give that inner critic a name. Call it something absurd like Randy or the Gremlin. And every time it starts reciting your past failures, you say, "Thanks for the input, Randy, but I'm not taking notes today." You are not fighting it. You are not trying to kill it. You are just acknowledging that it is a separate entity with an opinion that you do not have to agree with. That tiny shift from "I am a failure" to "I am having the thought that I am a failure" creates space. And in that space, you get to choose a different thought. I'm a human who has failed and who has also succeeded. Today, I choose to focus on what I learned. Boundaries are not walls. They are doors that you get to open and close. Most people avoid boundaries because they confuse them with aggression. But a boundary is simply a statement of what is true for you. I do not talk about that relationship anymore. I will not stay in conversations that make me relive my trauma. I need to leave this event if you keep bringing up my past mistakes. You do not need to explain, justify, or defend these boundaries. A simple "no, thank you" is a complete sentence. And here is what happens when you start setting boundaries. Some people will get angry. They will call you selfish, cold, unforgiving. That is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. That is a sign that they benefited from you not having boundaries. Your healing will inconvenience people who were comfortable with your suffering. Let them be inconvenienced. Their comfort is not your responsibility. Your future is. Let me give you a real-life scenario. You are at work. A coworker brings up a mistake you made 6 months ago in front of the whole team. Your face flushes. Your heart pounds. The past rushes in like a flood. Your old self would have apologized, shrunk, explained, over-explained, but not anymore. Here is what you do. You pause. You breathe out for 5 seconds. You look them in the eye calmly, and you say, "That was 6 months ago. I have learned from it. Let's focus on the current project." Then you do not wait for a response. You turn to someone else and ask a question about the present. That is not rude. That is a spine. That is you refusing to be the ghost of who you used to be. The past will try to ambush you in meetings, at family dinners, in text messages, in casual comments that feel like knives. Your job is not to dodge every knife. Your job is to decide in that moment whether you will bleed or whether you will say, "That does not belong here." Now let's talk about the relationship you have with yourself when you are alone, because that is where the real battle happens. When no one is watching, when there is no one to impress or defend yourself against, what do you do? Do you scroll through old photos? Do you reread old conversations? Do you lie in bed and fantasize about what you would say if you saw them again? Those are not innocent activities. Those are rituals of self-harm disguised as nostalgia. You are choosing to reopen wounds that were trying to close, and you are doing it because the wound has become familiar. So here is the most uncomfortable question you will face today. Are you willing to be bored? Are you willing to sit in silence without reaching for the past like a drug? Because that is what healing requires, tolerating the emptiness where the pain used to be. When you stop feeding the past, there will be a void. And the void will scream for you to fill it with something, anything, even more pain. Do not fill it, sit in the void, let it be empty. That emptiness is not loss. That emptiness is the soil where your new life will grow. But you have to be brave enough to leave it fallow for a while. Action step. Identify one person in your life who regularly brings up your past in a way that hurts you. Write down exactly what you will say next time they do it. Practice saying it out loud 5 times today. Do not soften it. Do not add apologies. For example, "I'm not discussing that," or "That chapter is closed for me," or "I will leave if this comes up again." Then when the moment comes, say it. Even if your voice shakes, even if they get upset, you are not responsible for their reaction. You are responsible for your freedom. Section 5. The daily rituals that forge a new identity, science based and brutally practical. You become what you do repeatedly. Not what you intend, not what you hope, not what you apologize for. What you do, every single day. And if you do nothing different today, you will wake up tomorrow with the same past sitting on your chest. So let me give you 3 science-backed rituals that will rewire your brain. Reshape your identity and make the past irrelevant, not forgotten. Irrelevant, there is a difference. The past will always exist, but it can become as unimportant as a cloud passing over a mountain. The mountain does not ask the cloud to leave, it just stays, and the cloud moves on. You need to become the mountain. Ritual 1, the 10-minute future visualization. Every morning after you have made your bed and drunk your water, sit with your eyes closed for 10 minutes. But do not meditate on peace. That is too vague. Instead, visualize a specific scenario from your future where you are free from the past. See it in detail. If you have been hung up on an ex, see yourself laughing with new friends in a new place, not thinking about that person at all. If you have been haunted by a professional failure, see yourself nailing a presentation, feeling confident, receiving applause. The science here is called mental rehearsal. Your brain activates the same neural circuits when you vividly imagine an action as when you actually perform it. You are literally pre-wiring your brain for success. Do this for 10 minutes every day. Do not miss a day. After 30 days, your brain will have built a new default pathway that leads toward the future instead of the past. This is not positive thinking. This is neural engineering. Ritual 2, the 2-minute gratitude reframe. I know you have heard about gratitude before, but you have been doing it wrong. Most people list things they are grateful for from the past, good memories, people, possessions. That keeps you anchored in the past. Instead, I want you to practice gratitude for things that have not happened yet. I am grateful for the strength I will show today. I am grateful for the peace I am building. I am grateful for the version of me who will handle that difficult conversation with grace. This is called prospective gratitude. It shifts your brain's reward prediction error toward future outcomes. It trains your dopamine system to anticipate growth, not pain. Do this every time you feel a past memory surfacing. Interrupt the memory with a statement of gratitude for a future you are creating. The past cannot compete with the magnetic pull of a compelling future, but you have to speak that future into existence. Ritual 3, the evening identity audit. Before bed, after your brain dump, write down 3 actions you took today that were in alignment with the person you want to become. Not the person you used to be, not the person the past says you are. The person you are choosing to become. For example, I wanted to check their profile, but I went for a walk instead. That is what a free person does. I felt shame about my past mistake, but I told myself I am learning instead of I am broken. That is what a kind person does. I set a boundary with my mother. That is what a person with self-respect does. This is not self-congratulation. This is reinforcement. Every time you notice yourself acting in alignment with your new identity, you strengthen the neural pathways of that identity. Within weeks, you will start to see yourself differently. The past will feel like a biography of a stranger, because in a very real way it will be. You are not healing the old you. You are building a new you. And the new you has no obligation to carry the old you's luggage. Let me speak directly to the fear that is rising in your chest as you read this. The fear that says, but if I let go of the past, I will forget the lesson. I will make the same mistake again. I will lose the love I had. I will betray who I was. That fear is a liar dressed in wisdom. Letting go does not mean forgetting. Letting go means the memory no longer has the power to dictate your present. You can remember that a fire burned you without living in fear of every flame. You can remember that someone left you without expecting everyone to leave. You can remember that you failed without believing you are a failure. The lesson is not in the pain. The lesson is in what you chose to do after the pain, and you have already learned it. You do not need to keep cutting yourself to prove you can bleed. Put down the knife. The lesson is in your bones now. Let the story go. I want you to imagine yourself 5 years from today. Imagine you did not let go. Imagine you kept replaying, kept resenting, kept hopping for an apology that never came, kept holding on to the weight. What does that version of you look like? Tired, bitter, alone. Now imagine you started today. You built the morning ritual. You set the boundaries. You interrupted every loop. You chose the future over the past. That version of you 5 years from now wakes up with light in their eyes. They have new memories, new loves, new failures that taught them new things. They look back at the old pain like a distant storm. They respect it. They honor that it happened, but they do not live there anymore. That version of you is not stronger, smarter, or luckier than you. They just made different choices, one choice at a time. Starting today, final action step. Before you close this script, stand up. Put your hand on your heart. Look at yourself in a mirror if you can. And say these words out loud. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. The past is a teacher, not a life sentence. Today I walk away from the ruins, not because I am unfeeling, because I am free. Now take one physical action within the next 5 minutes that your past self would never have done. Throw away one item that ties you to old pain. Send one message that closes an old chapter. Go for a walk without your phone. Do one thing that proves to your nervous system that the rules have changed. Do it now, not later. Now say this out loud. I release the story that no longer serves me. I am not my past. I am my choices today. And today,